And welcome once more to Flashpoints. I'm Bob Orr. Joining me as he always does is Juan Zarate. He's our national security analyst. Juan, good to see you.
Bob, great seeing you.
Let's talk about what's going on with Israel and Hamas in Gaza, because there's some interesting geopolitical changes afoot.
Right. What you see in this conflict is the formulation of alliance shifting that's already been underway. What's interesting, Bob, is you've had over the last few years, and we've talked about this on Flashpoints, the rupture of the relationship, for example, between Turkey and Israel, and Prime Minister Erdogan falling much harder on the side of Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood. At the same time, in the Gulf Cooperative Council, Qatar has been much more of a supporter of extremist groups. We talked about this during the Bo Bergdahl episode and the role that they played with the Taliban. Well, they've been supporters of the Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas. At the same time, countries like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and now Egypt under General Sisi are ardent opponents of Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood. In fact, in Egypt, as we've talked about here, there is a campaign underway to eradicate the Muslim Brotherhood. And so what you have is a realignment of forces, given the tumult of the Arab revolutions, some of which has been festering for some time, but has crystallized in the context of this conflict. So much so that you have real tensions diplomatically, with Turkey and Qatar falling very clearly on the side of Hamas and what's happening in Gaza, and Saudi Arabia, Egypt, the UAE being quiet, but in essence supporting the Israeli position.
So there's a bit of a split in the Arab states here. What does that do, though, to the dynamic on the ground? Like, how much energy does Israel get knowing it has support, for example, from Saudi Arabia to try to take out Hamas?
Well, in some ways, it mutes a lot of the opposition you would hear officially from the Arab states. Again, you're not hearing much from the Egyptians or the Saudis, which are the major Arab states.
But you're saying they're giving tacit approval to what Israel is doing.
Tacit or quiet approval to what Israel is doing, because, of course, they don't like Hamas either. Keep in mind that Egypt, under General Sisi, has closed the borders with Gaza. The Rafah border crossing has tried to eradicate the tunnels there, something the Israelis are trying to do on their side. And part of the reason Hamas has been under such pressure and Gaza's economy has suffered recently is that it has not had that outlet in Egypt. That's all intentional on the part of the Egyptians. But you're not hearing much of a discussion about that. And it's part of the reason why Hamas has been insistent that any peace deal have with it an opening of the borders to include potentially Rafah.
So let's just be clear about something here. When we say that Egypt and Saudi are giving tacit approval to the Israeli action on the ground there, it's not that they're opposing the Palestinian cause.
No.
They're against Hamas.
Right. That's exactly right. And they would never change their position on the right of Palestinian statehood, the right of the Palestinian people, and they certainly are not going to mute themselves in terms of objecting to what they view as the slaughter of innocents or something like that. That said, they're not going to throw their political weight behind what they view to be the defense of Hamas. And this creates challenges for U.S. diplomacy, Bob, because this then means that the U.S. has to navigate very carefully these waters, because any step we take vis-a-vis Israel and the Gaza situation has implications for the alliances. So when Secretary Kerry meets with Turkey and Qatar to try to bring a ceasefire forward, that sends a very strong signal to Israel, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, the UAE, that in some way the U.S. is kowtowing or empowering that alliance in opposition to them. And so this is a very fluid dynamic, but one that impacts even American diplomacy.
And just as we wrap up, and quickly, it's a broad question, but quickly, where do we stand here in terms of the fighting? I mean, there doesn't seem to be any let up there, and if anything, it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is emboldened now.
Right. Both sides have not accepted the ceasefire terms presented by any of the parties, the Egyptians in the first instance, and now the U.S. through Turkey and Qatar. Those have not been accepted. But I think what's important to note is Israel has made the determination that they are in this for a longer haul, because they have to destroy the infrastructure that Hamas has built. Largely the rockets, but also these tunnels, which have been a major surprise, a strategic surprise to the Israelis. They think they have to destroy this capability, otherwise they're going to be vulnerable. That means this conflict is going to go on for a while.
Something we'll have to watch. Juan, we have to leave it there for now.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, and thanks to you for watching Flashpoints. I'm Bob Orr. We'll see you next time.